Hello and welcome to a brand new video. In this one, I'm going to be helping you fix some common photo editing mistakes. I've got 8 things to fix in total, and stick around until the end as well because I'm going to be sharing one bonus tip that is going to save you thousands and thousands of dollars. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first one is, and it's one I see most commonly, especially for beginners to photo editing, is always adding more. There's this somewhat illusion that when you're editing a photo, you've got to pump up the contrast, pump up the vibrancy, pump up the saturation, pump up the clarity, pump up the sharpness. And this just isn't true. In fact, when we do this, this can often lead to images looking over-processed, fake, and just so far removed from reality that it loses all the character that it had when you first saw the scene. Now, there's nothing wrong with adding more to a certain extent, but there's absolutely a lot right with reducing the contrast, reducing the clarity, softening the sharpness. It can give you excellent results, especially if you're into film-like photography and you want that kind of classic bygone era look. Don't be afraid to tone things down, and that can actually give more power to your image. The second one is always looking for the perfect white balance. Now, I understand in some cases, maybe editorial, journalism, or documentary photography, you really want to kind of keep things as neutral as possible. But in fact, you can get quite experimental with white balance, and you can go cooler and warmer depending on the frame, depending on the scene, depending on the light, and depending on the creative objective you want from your image. So don't always be looking for a short white balance. Play around with it, get it to where you want to be, experiment and see what feels good and what feels right. And if there's a little voice in your head saying it has to be the perfect white balance, ignore it and go with your intuition and go with your creative approach to photo editing. The next one is mistaking clarity for sharpness. Now, this is one I see an awful lot when people have taken a soft image. If it's slightly out of focus, they think, I know, I'll just pump up the clarity and that'll mask that this image is soft and slightly out of focus. But that's just not true. What actually happens is more clarity adds more contrast to the midtones in the frame, and this can often lead to it looking overcooked, crunchy, fake. It's not very flattening for the subjects in the images as well, and yeah, it's just not a very good look. What I would say is be more at peace with a soft image. It doesn't always have to be super sharp focus, and if that was the objective of the image and you've not done it right in camera, then sometimes it's best just leaving that image alone and moving on to the next one. Number 4 is removing all grain. Now, I see this a lot, especially in the camera debates of crop sensor versus full frame and how much noise is in an image, especially in low light situations. And for some reason, maybe it's the more clinician style of photography that have ingrained into people's minds that grain equals negative. It doesn't. In fact, you can get really creative with grain. I think it can add a lot of character to your photograph. In fact, sometimes when I'm shooting in good light with a low ISO where there's no noise in my image, I'll actually add grain as a creative choice in post-production. Now, all of the leading tools like Lumina Neo, for example, they have a slider where you can just add a bit more grain and kind of give it that classic, more texture, more character, as I say, and just experiment with it and don't be afraid of it. Grain doesn't always mean something bad, and it can give more style and creativity to your edit. Number 5, and I actually did a video about this at greater length, and that's fearing AI tools. Now, AI has obviously come into the mainstream a lot in the past couple of years, and photo editing tools have not escaped it either. Now, I get it. Some people are against AI, especially generative AI, because it's kind of stealing other photographers' work so it can generate images. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm on about simple tools that can make what would have been long-winded editing tasks so much quicker and speed up your workflow. Things like removal tools, where you just highlight an object in your frame that you want to remove, click a button, and it's gone in a matter of seconds. You can also use tools to replace the sky if you want to go a little bit more creative, to reshape the lighting in your image. There's a lot of cool tools in there that you can use that isn't necessarily the bad side of AI, but is actually the good side of AI, which I do believe exists. And if we can have a bit of a more open mind, then you can get really creative with your photo editing and also speed up those workflows and deliver your edits and final frames to a client or on social media much quicker. Okay, so the next one, and this is something that I'm an absolute stickler for, is over smoothing skin. We get it. Not everyone has perfect glowing skin. In fact, most of us have imperfections in our skin in one way or another. But one thing that absolutely bugs me is when I see portrait work or editorial modeling or things like that, where the skin has just been so over softened that it just doesn't look natural. And in fact, it's quite demeaning to your subject when you're saying that you absolutely have to over edit them for them to have any kind of beauty. That's just not true. So don't go down on the smoothing tool or the reduction in clarity right down to the bottom so it looks fake and just overdone. Just, you can do it subtly. There's nothing wrong with smoothing skin to a certain degree, but just be very subtle. Remember, the art of a photographer isn't to change a person, but rather to help them love themselves. And you can do that in camera and with respectful, ethical, subtle edits in post-production. The next one is overusing presets. Now, I get it. You know, not everyone wants to spend hours, including me, editing images. But I think it's important as photographers to obtain our own creative identity. I see a lot of work on social media that just looks copy and paste of other photographers because they're all buying the same presets, they're all shooting the same style, and no one's really standing out. Now, there's nothing wrong with starting with a preset and then fine-tuning it, but what I would actually do, rather than relying on another photographer's editing flow, create your own presets. Take some time. If you're proud of an edit you've made, you can save it and you can use it and you can start building your own visual identity that people can connect with. The next one is more of a workflow tip, and that is not backing up your raw files. Now, there's a few reasons to do this. The first one is, we know as photographers, as photo editors, that we evolve over time. Our approach isn't the same now as, say, it was 3-4 years ago. And we might look at an image and we might think, God, I wish I could edit that image the way I edit images now. But we've only got the JPEG. And then when we start editing JPEG on JPEG, it starts reducing the quality of the frame. It doesn't give you as much creative control. So what I would do is, I'm not saying back up every raw file you've ever taken, but for your top images, do save them, put them in a folder in your cloud storage, and then you can always go back to them and edit them again. Another reason, and this is for people who are submitting their work to galleries, photography competitions, looking for funding and things like that, is a lot of organizations now, due to the fact that there is generative AI in the world, are asking photographers to also submit their raw files on top of the final edited frame. And this is so they can authenticate and just ensure that it's legit. So if you do have success with your edited image, but you can't produce your raw file, then you may get disqualified, you may not get funding, you may get kicked out of the competition, and that's not what you want. So if you've got it backed up, you can send it on, they can get the metadata, they can see it's actually done in camera, and you'll be okay. Okay, so one last bonus tip, and this is a financial one, and that is stop paying for monthly subscriptions. They're going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars in a lifetime, and it's annoying as well. And there are options out there that offer a perpetual license. Now, I recommend going with Lumina Neo. You only pay once. You can get great deals on it. It costs at most around about $160, and you can get further deals as well. And you can edit on desktop. You can edit on tablet, mobile, and there's access to a lot of creative tools like LUTs and presets through the Creative Library. So I'm going to leave a link down there below so you can get on top of it and sign up. But yeah, those are my editing mistakes that I'm helping you fix, hopefully. What do you think about them? What editing mistakes do you think that people need to commonly fix or that you see commonly done online? What's your pet peeve in terms of editing? Let me know down in the comments. And if you did like this video, then please do like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. I'm Dan. This is M Frames. See ya.